Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation. Data warehouse, business intelligence. You may have heard these names, but what are they? Today, we'll lay out the basics of a data warehouse that should lift the veil on the name and the functionality. We'll answer questions submitted by you, the attendees, at the registration time, and those that arise during the presentation, you can ask them in the questions section of GoToMeeting. This is being recorded. You'll get a link to the recording, usually within a day or so. Okay. My name is Mike Stegman. I'm a senior data access consultant for Help Systems, primarily working on the business intelligence side. And after many different roles at Help Systems, I'm currently focusing on webinars, articles, speaking engagements, and the like. I've been using our data access tools for over 17 years. I've been working on the IBM since it was born, way back in 1988 as the AS400. And I'm joined today by an IBM subject matter expert on data warehouse, Alan Jordan. Alan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Mike. So like you, I've also been working on what was originally AS400 and now IBM since 1988, exactly the same year. So I was originally working for an independent software vendor in Australia, where I was one of the architects for a data warehouse product, which was originally called Rodin, named after the famous sculptor Auguste Rodin. And in 1998, I moved to the US on a 3-year work assignment. I'm still here. That was to help to bring the product to the US market. And then around 6 years ago, Rodin was acquired by Help Systems and is now known as SQL Data Warehouse. So currently I'm the development manager for both SQL Data Warehouse and our query and reporting tool, SQL. And I'm happy to be here today to talk about data warehouses with you.
Perfect. Thank you, Alan. And thanks for doing your presentation today. Now, before we begin, I would like to just show our agenda for today, how we're going to lay it out. This is the agenda that we have today. We're going to talk briefly, brief overview of what is a data warehouse. Alan will talk to that. And then we'll get to ask the expert questions that came in at registration time. And then finally, Alan will do a little bit more of an overview with SQL Data Warehouse. Okay. Before we begin that, though, I would like to ask everyone a poll question. Are you currently working on a data warehouse? So let me share this poll. Make sure I got the right one. Here we go. Launch. Excellent. Okay, it should be coming up. There it is. Take just a few minutes here. Your answers you can see are yes, we currently have a data warehouse. We're implementing one over the next couple of years. No, we're waiting for management to kind of buy in and just learning more about the subject matter. You know, we don't really have one. We're just kind of getting our bearings, as I call it. Kind of just to see. So we'll give you all just a few minutes here to kind of answer some questions and you know, see where we're at. Excellent, good stuff coming in. Wait just a few more seconds here. We always like to know our audience, right? We like to know where people are coming from and what their background is. So excellent, thank you. Let's see where we at here on time. Okay, perfect. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now because it looks like most of us have already voted. Most of you, I haven't voted. Do that and share the results just real quickly. And then you can see that a lot of them are in the education area, that you're just learning more about the subject, kind of getting their bearings and seeing what's out there. We do have 25% who do have a data warehouse, so that's kind of good. And some are waiting for management buy-in, which, you know, is often an issue with a lot of tools, you know, going forward. All right. So before we really get started into our discussion here and our presentation, there's kind of two areas of focus, and this is what Alan's going to talk about in the next few slides here, is what is a data warehouse and what are the key benefits. So Alan, you want to take it away?
Okay, all right. So what is a data warehouse? Well, there's probably a lot of different answers to that question, but I think these are two good descriptions. So our first definition reads, a data warehouse is a repository, usually a database, that brings together data from multiple sources and stores it in a way that makes it much easier to use for reporting and analysis and providing meaningful business insights and enabling good business decisions. A slightly simpler definition could be that a data warehouse is a database that transforms complex, difficult to use business data into useful information. If we think about business intelligence, what is our aim? We might want to enable executives and business analysts to make decisions on accurate and complete and timely information. We want to deliver that information as executive dashboards, such as these two examples, displaying highly aggregated information. Or we might want to roll out data access tools, such as our SQL product, to our data analysts so that they can slice and dice into the data, gaining business insights. Unfortunately, next slide, in many cases, it's impossible to do this directly from the operational data. So the biggest benefit to a data warehouse is it enables you to do things that were next to impossible before. So let's take a deeper look at the challenges that it solves. One of the biggest challenges is the design of operational databases. They were not designed for humans to access using query and reporting tools. They were designed to support the progression of different types of transactions through the system, keeping track of all the relevant details of that transaction until it is finalized. Some of the more technical folks in the audience probably know about the principle of third normal form. We don't really have time today to go into the details of that. It's outside of scope, except to say that it results in data being spread across many different tables, which sometimes join in very complex ways. And this can make it difficult for most users to use query and reporting tools directly over that data. When we build a data warehouse, we take quite a different approach. The tables are designed explicitly for analysis, usually resulting in fewer tables that are easily joined to each other. So here's an example from a data warehouse project that I was working on some time ago. The schema, a set of tables on the left-hand side, is from the operational database, and on the right is the same information in the data warehouse that we designed. Not only have we simplified the structure, we've used meaningful names and only included the information or data that we care about. So which of those would you rather use to write your reports over? That's a no-brainer.
I'm all about simple, so I would definitely use the one on the right.
Okay. Another issue is that not only are those tables not designed for you to use, but the way the data is stored, it's optimized for the computer programs to use, and as a result, it contains all sorts of cryptic codes, obscure relationships, and what I like to call booby traps for anyone other than expert users. A redundant field might have been used for a different purpose, but it's still got its original name and text. I've often seen where multiple pieces of information are stored in the same field, and we call that overloading. And that's because the developers didn't want to make a database change, and so on. All sorts of issues arise like that. Of course, the application software knows what it all means, and it includes all sorts of rules in the software and complex logic to use that data correctly. However, none of that is ever documented. So how can the average person know enough to use it correctly? When we build a data warehouse, we transform the data into a form that we can easily understand. We make it look like we want it to look. The data warehouse team needs to discover the ins and outs of the data, but the people using the data warehouse itself, they can be blissfully unaware of the complexity that they are now shielded from. Go back to chart. I think you jump 1, 2. There we go. So this is an example of a real-world query over some operational data. Lots of contortions here to wrangle the data into the required form. That one wasn't too complex, but I rewrote that query looking at what it actually did over, they were JD Edwards tables, and this is how a similar query would look in a data warehouse that we had designed over that data. Far simpler, far easier to understand. And it's almost self-explanatory with the column names, etc. Okay, what about this beauty? And Mike, would you scroll through as I'm talking here? So this is actually a real query How long do you think it took to write and test this query? How many people in your organization have this skill level?
Wow.
It goes on and on and on.
Wow. That's
And
all
this,
I can say.
I know, this is just one of the many hundreds of similar queries that this organization had. I didn't try to rewrite that one into a data warehouse. It was, I didn't have that project, but it is mind-boggling. And then, we think about it, data's everywhere today. 20 years ago, it might have been common for an organization to have just one computer system running one or maybe two applications. But of course, that isn't the case anymore. Think about your own organization. How many applications do you have running on different servers, different databases, DB2, Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, and of course, you maybe even have data in the cloud too. And often the data in these silos is related to each other. So you want to use it together in your business intelligence. But as you probably know, it's virtually impossible to join and use it as a single set of data. Each of these applications has its own unique set of challenges, its own booby traps that you have to try to understand and work through. So when we build a data warehouse, we load all of this data into one database. We standardize it. We make it look and feel as close and similar to each other as we can. We make it relate to each other. And it's now all in one place and it can be easily accessed as a single, easy to use database. Every database has bad data, period. This can be the result of human error. It might be when you're inputting data, if there are no edit checks in the application, or you type the wrong address, the wrong telephone number, whatever. It could be a bug in a program or other reasons. Another common one is data conversions, where you've converted data from one application to another. Whatever the cause, if you blindly use operational data to make business decisions, you're at risk of making the wrong decisions because of that bad data. So when we load a data warehouse, we can put in place some edit checks to make sure that we validate certain pieces of data. Does this field contain a value when it's always expected to? Is it within the expected range? Does this join always work? And so on. So now if we handle all of those issues in our ETL and in our load processes, now our business users can be much more confident about the quality of the data they're using to make business decisions. Interesting, if you look at the Google search there, I've used this, talked about data quality many times over the last 20 years. But originally, when I did a Google search, it might return 6 million, 10 million, 120 million. This week, 8.1 billion results were discussions about data quality. This is how big an issue it is in our business world today. And in
That's
fact,
amazing too. That's a big number.
it's a huge number. The actual amazing part is that Google actually returned that in 0.56 seconds. Yeah. Okay, if we go to the next chart, let's look at some results of some studies. In 2016, IBM estimated that poor data quality costs US businesses over $3.1 trillion per year. Gartner did a study in 2007 that put the average cost of bad data per organization at over $15 million per year. Those are absolutely mind-blowing numbers. Now, a data warehouse can't magically solve all of your bad data problems. If the data doesn't come into the data warehouse and it's used elsewhere in your organization, then we're not going to solve that. But you'd be surprised at how it can expose a lot of bad data issues that you didn't even know you had. So indirectly, it will help to clean up your data, because as you're loading and putting in these business rules and loading the data warehouse, you're discovering all sorts of issues with the data you just did not know were there. So it can go a long way to solving and saving you lots of money.
That always reminds me of that old story that you used to tell about the tax on a house that was done incorrectly, and somebody got like a
Oh, yeah,
$1 million tax bill on a
yeah,
$80,000 house or something
yeah.
like
In various presentations over the years, I've used all sorts of horror stories about data, the results of bad data.
that. Bad data, absolutely.
Okay, let's go to the next slide.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, that's not all of the benefits. Those are some of the key benefits. So in summary, we could say a data warehouse removes the roadblocks that prevent so many organizations from realizing the full potential of their business intelligence initiatives. So lesser skilled users will be able to use the front-end reporting tools that you have already invested in. Reports should now finally agree with each other, be far more reliable. It may sound a lot to take on to build a data warehouse, but time and again, studies have shown very impressive ROI, return on investment, and 400% is a commonly reported number. Okay.
All right. So far, so good. That's kind of laying down the basics of the data warehouse, right? Kind of the definition, kind of the what is the key benefits, things like this. Now we're going to take a few minutes here and look at some of the questions that came in. We kind of combined some, we summarized some, things like this. These came in, these were asked by you attendees at the time of registration, right? So the first one we're going to look at is this one here. Is it difficult to create a data warehouse? I'll leave that to Alan.
Well, obviously there is effort involved, but in my opinion, in the long run, it's not much more work than it would be to spend the many, many, many hours that will be needed to design dozens or hundreds of complex queries like the ones we just looked at. Yes, there is upfront work, but it saves you so much time down the road. So you're just moving where we do the work. What we're effectively doing is pushing all the complexity to the back end, to the build, to the design, and to the load, the ETL processes that load the data warehouse. That needs to be done just once for each business area by a small team of experts. Whereas without a data warehouse, each new variation of a complex query often gets rewritten from scratch, especially if they're spread among desktops and in different silos, if they're not stored in a common area. There might be a very complex query that Mike wrote last week. I need to do something similar today. I don't know he has it, so I'm going to rewrite it and spend hours or days doing that. So we're just moving where we do the work. And just remember, building a data warehouse is a journey. You don't do it all at once. You take one business area, you develop that part of the warehouse, you deploy it, you move on to the next. And over time, a lot of the common stuff, such as the customer, the product tables, they already exist. You just reuse them in each new business area that you work on. So it gets easier and easier to build it out over time.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, next question that came in here was, where should I build a data warehouse?
Well, I'm going to guess that most of you, or maybe everyone in the audience today, is from an IBM-centric organization. So as such, my recommendation is that IBM is your best choice. Stay with the technology you know and trust to use your business. DB2 is an excellent database. The added benefit of being integrated with the operating system cannot be understated. You don't need a DBA. It scales as a single server. Virtually every other hardware/database combination that you will use will require multiple servers and a DBA, multiple servers to scale, and a DBA to tune performance. And then not to mention the cost of multiple OS and database licenses when you use multiple servers to scale. And there could be other tools that you need that aren't part of the integrated operating system and database that we have on IBM. One further thing, if you build the data warehouse on the same hardware frame, on the same piece of hardware, as your main operational databases, you don't need to be sending massive amounts of data over the network too. So you get that benefit also.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, let's go to the next one. Why is my machine not moving here? Okay, there we go. Sorry about that, a little technical issue. All right, another question that was submitted by the attendees here is, when does the data warehouse get updated? I heard that there was a time lag in the data.
Well, usually there is. It's common to load the data warehouse overnight, but the load frequency can be adjusted based on your needs. It may be possible to do it hourly, and sometimes we even do real-time feeds into the data warehouse. But there can be challenges with that, though. Sometimes that real-time data is not complete. We all have end-of-day processes that do something with our transactions from today and update them, complete them, things like GL postings. So you can't always load it real time. So end of day, overnight, after your end of day processes is completed, is typically the best approach. I've seen data warehouses that are loaded once a month. They only did one monthly reporting. So once all the end of month processes were done, they loaded the data warehouse, and now they can start analyzing what happened last month. But it also, when you're talking about real-time data, brings up a point I didn't make earlier. Real business intelligence is about analyzing the past to make decisions about the future or even predict the future. Real-time data is very rarely required to do that. On the other hand, we have operational reporting, and this is where we might need to know what is going on in my business right now. Are the trucks getting out on time? What are the bottlenecks in whatever my business is that is causing business issues today? And we often use the same reporting tools for those purposes. So you might have a query and reporting tool over your operational data to look at that, and that's great. So we're using the same tools for two different purposes. But the data warehouse doesn't stop you from still doing that against your operational data, and maybe you can load it in real time into data warehouse if that's the best approach for you.
Okay, what are the pitfalls? We kind of had to generalize this one because some of the people asked similar questions. We kind of lumped them into what are the pitfalls regarding the data warehouse that you want to avoid?
Oh, all right. Firstly, there's a saying, fail to plan, plan to fail. So it's very true here. So don't just jump in ad hoc and without doing some research about data warehouse design. There are some good books that you can get hold of and read about the best way to design data warehouses. The key thing is don't just replicate your operational systems. Secondly, I would say use a tool. The right tool set, such as our SQL Data Warehouse product, will save you work and provide you a host of other benefits over trying to do it manually. Another good pitfall to avoid is don't expect the IT department to build your warehouse with data warehouse without very close collaboration from the business side. In fact, some of the most successful data warehouse projects that I've been involved with were actually implemented by the business side with very little IT involvement. This is, you're designing how you want the data to look from a business perspective. So there must be business involvement. Document it. This is critical. If you don't document it, you can be building the greatest data warehouse, but without documentation, you've still got the same sort of issues that we have over operational data. Yes, it's easier to understand, but why is that business rule there? What is the purpose of that validation? What does this derived value mean? So documentation is key. And finally, I've talked about data quality before. Make sure you build validation and error reporting into that ETL, the load process. And if you use good tools will do that. Our SQL Data Warehouse has very powerful capabilities in that area. There's probably a few more, but that's probably the key ones that I've recognized over the years. So.
Exactly, and this is kind of a, what are the pitfalls to avoid? It can be, you can go on and on and on with a lot of things, but that was great. That was really awesome. So thanks, Alan. And now we're going to look at SQL Data Warehouse a little more specifically, right? So we kind of gave you the groundwork of a data warehouse, gave you answer some of the questions that y'all had coming in, and now Alan's going to talk specifically about SQL Data Warehouse. So Alan, take it away.
Okay. Maybe you could give me control of that. You keep control. I'll talk
Okay.
about as I for you onto the next slide. So
okay, that'll work.
So some bullet points about how will we describe SQL Data Warehouse. First of all, it's a data management tool to define and build and maintain the data warehouse tables and their associated indexes. The key thing here is that you do not need to know how to create these database objects. The tool does it for you. You just need to specify what you want them to look like and press the button and we go and create them. Ongoing maintenance, such as adding new columns, is very easy to do too. It's an extract, transform, and load tool. So ETL is a common abbreviation for that. You might have heard that term before. And this is really often the most challenging part of building the data warehouse, especially if you're not using a tool. In SQL Data Warehouse, we have a visual design interface, which is really easy and intuitive to use, yet very powerful in its capabilities. And you can include data validation rules very easily. And thinking about, if I'm validating things, then errors might come out of that validation. So we need a whole error subsystem to be able to handle the errors, maybe allow you to reprocess them and report on them. And of course, all of that is included with the tool. You can get email notifications. You can subscribe to a notification, getting an email to say, hey, there were errors rejected by this ETL process, and then as soon as you come in the morning, that's something I need to attend to. It's based around an active metadata repository. So if you're not familiar with the term metadata, it basically means it's a mechanism for describing and documenting what we have built in the data warehouse. SQL Data Warehouse has an active metadata layer, which means that the metadata in some areas controls the processing. So it's both documentary and controlling. And you can add descriptive metadata at virtually every layer, at a table layer, at a column level, at a rule level. So it's very, very comprehensive. And a lot of the metadata, the descriptive stuff we have, is mostly automatic. It includes a fully managed development environment. So you're developing an application. You need to keep control of that. You would probably have a development area, a test environment, and of course your production environment where you're deploying it out to your end users. We have all of the tools to manage these environments, keep track of what is going on. We have project capabilities, change management, etc. And all of this is again essential to long-term success. And finally, it's native to and integrated with the IBM i platform. So we were built from the ground up to work with this what was originally AS400, now IBM i. So we take advantage of all the database capabilities, all the operational data abilities, work management, etc. So going on to the next slide. All of your data, the metadata repository, everything is stored in libraries in DB2 on the IBM i server. But obviously, we need a modern development tool for designing and building the data warehouse that works as a Java-based client running on your PC. Got a very familiar Explorer type interface. And one of the nice key features of this is this text area at the bottom here, where if you select something in the tree or in one of the other panels, any text that you've entered to describe that particular entity or definition is displayed here. So this is part of the metadata in action that we're seeing. Now the next slide. When we're building new definitions, such as our ETL definitions, and this example here is building a new table definition, we have a wizard which will walk you through and guide you through the process of doing it. So it's, these are the important steps that you need to do to get to the end to be able to build this. It's you'll walk through it, and it's all pretty intuitive. And go to the next slide. We use a lot of visual representations wherever possible. So this example is a high-level view of an ETL process to load a customer's table. So on the right-hand side here, I can see the table that I'm loading. On the left-hand side, I can see that there are 5 tables that I'm joining together to get access, bring the data together. And this box in the middle is our ETL process. And we can drill down into that ETL process. Go to the next slide. So we drill down and we can see how those 5 tables relate to each other. These are just nice small tables, easy, good for a demo here. But you've got a visual line, so how the joins occur. This is drag and drop to create these joins. I've got a flow chart showing me the sequence of events that are occurring, and where if a join fails, a reject will occur. Lots of visual information is displayed to allow you to easily see what is going to happen when this runs. So that's at the source table layer. And then when in this view, we're looking at the source to target relationship. So columns in this table are joined out to this column in this target table. So you can visually see how the data is going to flow through the ETL process. You can create pieces of derived information. Here I've got a couple of special values, the job date and a timestamp, so I can use those to enhance and augment my data as I'm building it. And go to the next slide. We also have a very comprehensive derived column builder, so we can derive new pieces of information with either very simple or very, very complex calculations, if, else, etc. Built-in functions make it very easy for you to do complex stuff. Again, you can very, very powerful editor. And here at the very top, you can see that here's a metadata in action again. I can document this rule, and this one's quite simple. Price multiplied by quantity, that's my extended value. But it may not be as simple as that. You might have all sorts of conditions. You want to tell the next person coming along, or telling yourself when you come back and visit this in a year's time, why that calculation or why that conditional stuff is being done. Okay, and this, two examples of the reports that are generated. You don't need to do anything to make these things happen. The one on the left is an audit report. This is telling me, you know, this, when I ran this ETL job, this is how long this is all the job information, how long it took, how many rows were processed, how many rejects might have occurred, and there's a lot more information that is showing about the tables that are being loaded. And because in this particular one, rejects did occur, I got an error report, and it's telling me that there were 4 different types of errors. The first one, I had a failure to find a record, so a join failed. Here's the key values that were used. And the other 3 were errors based on the rules that I defined, and here are the 3 rules. So I've got a count of error by type and what the rule itself was that was triggered. So this is where I can build my data quality rules to make sure that, you know, what I'm loading is what I expect and want to see. So I guess that's, you know, there are a lot more things to talk about, but that's probably enough for today. This last chart here is showing what a fully implemented SQL data warehouse environment might look like. On the left-hand side, we've got our data sources. This might be a IBM data on a different system or LPAR, and we can access it via DDM or remote SQL. I can also be using remote journaling to capture data through journal changes, using change data capture and apply. I can be pulling data from other databases such as Oracle, MySQL, etc. And in this case, we will use a staging area to stage it in DB2 tables before we put it through the ETL process into the data warehouse. You can also access Excel files on the network, or CSV files. You might need to be bringing you know, unstructured data in. That's possible from text files and CSV files. Showing here at the bottom that the metadata repository is in control and working with all of this to build and load the data into the data warehouse. And finally, we can also export the data warehouse data to other targets. I can send it out to a DB2 table on another IBM or maybe on a PC or Linux box or an Oracle table, Microsoft table. We can also push data back out to Salesforce in the cloud, or just simply export it as an Excel file, as a text file. And of course, typically you would be using a front-end tool to do your query and analysis over it. So that's
excellent. Yeah, I kind of like this slide, Alan. This is, you know, for me anyway, someone who's not at your level of data warehouse knowledge, but it kind of, you know, flows left to right and kind of gives you a nice little, okay, this is where it's coming from, this is where we kind of go into, and this is where we could go out to. So I like this slide. That's actually pretty cool. Thanks. Excellent. But that's, you know, that's me. All right. So kind of a little recap here on what we kind of talked about here. We've answered those 2 key questions at the top. What is a data warehouse and the key benefits? We went through several of that stuff. And then some of the questions that were brought up is things like, is it difficult to build? Is there a time lag? Then we had a few other questions that aren't on here about pitfalls to avoid and things like that. And, you know, how do I get started? One of the things I took out of that, Alan, which is true in a lot of different areas, is it's not an IT project, right?
Yeah. You will probably need IT involvement because of the
Yep.
technical skills, but it should be driven by the business, not IT.
Correct.
In my experience, when IT gets involved, it will be a low priority. There's always many fires to be fought in an IT department, and it won't get the attention that it deserves. So, drive it from the business side is a key success factor.
Exactly. I've heard that, like I said, in a lot of different places. I was even at a conference many years ago with Frank Soltis and Steve Will, the Frank being the father of the IBM, the AS400, if you will, and Steve Will is the with IBM, and get the users involved. It's not all IT. You got to have those people involved. So that's great. Excellent. All right. That's kind of the recap on what we covered. So now I'm going to do another polling question. Do you have something else you wanted to add there, Alan?
No,
Good polling question. Excellent. Beautiful. All right. I got to go to our tool here and share a question. So the question is right there. How can help systems help you out? So I have to launch the question here. There we go. That's what you should be seeing now. And you can see the choices there. I'd like to get more information on data warehouse. Let's set up a data warehouse demo. Like something more maybe on security or automation, some other solutions within help systems, or information on training and services too. So we have those different areas. So go ahead and take just a few more minutes here and we'll ask this, take these poll questions. We won't share the results on this, obviously. We'll just want to get some feedbacks from some of you all. And because as you know about help systems, we have a lot of automation tools, we have a lot of security tools, as well as our business intelligence side of the world.
I was just talking with some of my colleagues the other day, and just with what's going on in the world right now, security and automation are two critical areas that we need to maintain. Automation, especially, if we're trying to do more with fewer people, we need to automate things.
Exactly.
If they're not allowed into the office and they can't work from home, I want to keep the lights on somehow.
Exactly. Yeah, there's many people that I follow, and one in particular said the same thing when this whole thing started. Just business in general is automation. And I'm not talking just something, an automated warehouse that runs your factory or runs your warehouse, right, where you can code in a part number and a machine goes and picks it off the thing. But I'm talking about other tools that people don't always think about, is setting up your automated so data gets moved around, like in a data warehouse or things like that. So there's a lot of that going on. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this poll here. Excellent. Now we're back. All right, so now we're going to see if there are any questions that are out there from our studio audience, to put it one way, right? Okay, there are a couple out here actually. So let me read the first one here. Is I have SQL, which is our data access BI tool that we have with help systems. Can I use it for getting data from a data warehouse?
Absolutely. The SQL Data Warehouse goes as far as building the database, and it has, it can build SQL views over them too. But SQL Data Warehouse itself is not the delivery mechanism of the business, information. So SQL, if you're using it, it can build dashboards, it can do all sorts of great stuff with the data. But so yeah, the two work together perfectly, perfect partners. And in fact, even if you have another front-end tool, you might, there's several others out there. As long as it can access DB2 data, it will also work with SQL Data Warehouse.
Awesome. Another one I hear is, can I capture data at a moment in time to compare to?
At a moment in time to compare to, well, I'm not quite sure exactly what that means. However, yes, yes, I would say it depends, but probably yes. If we're talking about data at a moment in time, if the tables are journaled, we can capture the detailed journal images and write those to a table. So I might, if there are multiple changes to one record, yes, I can give you it can tell you exactly when those changes happen. It can even tell you which program, which user, which job made those changes. So if that's not quite the purpose of that question, maybe the submitter could talk to us later and we could
follow
answer
up.
it more fully. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's true with any other question. It looks like I have time for maybe one more question here, but any other questions we have, you can just send it to us later, and we'll get back to you later. Does Help Systems provide assistance in getting started with the data warehouse?
We do. One of the key things that we want to enable all of our SQL Data Warehouse users is to be self-sufficient. We don't want you to be reliant on services in the long run. So we have a very, very comprehensive training course. So it's a 3 or 4 day class, so it goes through all the capabilities of the tool. And our aim is at the end of that week that if you've got 3 or 4 people attending, that you are capable of getting up and running with the data warehouse. You may need some project management assistance. You may need some, obviously need some support in the early stages, and all of that is easily available. And we can also provide services too, if you want to go that far.
And that's true in a lot of areas within Help Systems that I have seen is we want our clients to be self-reliant, right? So down the road, you may be a smaller shop, you may be a huge multi country, worldwide, conglomerate or something. So,
yeah.
But you want to be self-reliant. So down the road, you want to be able to, not have to go back to a single source, Help Systems or anybody, to make little changes to what you need. You want, we're there for you to help you out, but at the same time, it's a good idea to have people there to go on. So I've seen that with other tools as well. Excellent. Well, it looks like that's all the questions that are out there for now, and we're just about at the end of our time. So I wanted just to thank Alan. Thank you for your presentation. It was great.
You're welcome, Mike.
Always learn a lot about data warehouse. Even if it's a couple of times we do this, it's picking up 1 or 2 bits of information for me.
Yeah.
But for our audience, based on the questions and the attendance, I think we did pretty well. So I want to thank everyone for attending. Remember, you can visit our website or reach out to Help Systems, to your account rep if you'd like more information. Take a look at the website for additional information. I want to thank everybody for attending, and this will conclude our webinar today pretty much on time. Look at that. All right. So thanks again, Alan, and thanks everyone for attending.
You're welcome. Thanks, Mike. Thanks everybody for attending.